Life feels heavy because you've been taught that heavy is wrong. You've been conditioned to believe that if you're not happy, you're failing. So you force it, you fake it. You push against the weight until you're exhausted. But what if the heaviness isn't your enemy? What if the very act of forcing happiness is what's making you miserable? You see, there's something profound happening in your life right now that you might not recognize. Every time you tell yourself you should be happy when you're not, you're creating a war inside yourself. One part of you feels heavy, another part judges that heaviness as wrong. And suddenly, you're not just dealing with whatever made you feel heavy in the first place. You're dealing with the shame of feeling heavy. This is where most people get stuck. They think happiness is something you manufacture, something you summon on command, something you owe to the world and to yourself. But here's what decades of studying human consciousness has taught me. Forced happiness isn't happiness at all, it's a performance. And performances exhaust you. Think about the last time someone told you to cheer up. How did that feel? Did it make you lighter? Or did it make you want to retreat further into yourself? That reaction you had, that resistance, that's your inner wisdom speaking. It's telling you something important. It's saying that authentic happiness can't be forced any more than authentic love can be demanded. But you live in a world that profits from your dissatisfaction. A world that sells you the idea that happiness is just one purchase away, one relationship away, one achievement away, one more self-help book away. And when those things don't deliver lasting happiness, what do? You blame yourself. You think you're broken. You think you're not trying hard enough. So you force harder. This is the trap. And right now, as you're listening to these words, you might be in that trap. Let me tell you something that might sound contradictory at first. The fastest way to find happiness is to stop chasing it. The most direct path to lightness is to honor your heaviness. Not indulge it, not wallow in it, but honor it. Acknowledge it. Accept that it's here for a reason. Your heaviness is information. It's your psyche's way of telling you that something needs attention, something needs to shift, something needs to be released. When you force happiness on top of unprocessed heaviness, you're essentially putting a Band-Aid on a wound that needs to breathe. Here's what happens in your nervous system when you force happiness. Your body knows you're lying. Your unconscious mind knows you're performing, and it creates stress. Real physiological stress. Your cortisol levels rise, your immune system weakens, your sleep becomes restless. You're literally making yourself sick by trying to feel better. This isn't about positive thinking being bad. This isn't about giving up on joy. This is about understanding the difference between authentic happiness and manufactured happiness. Authentic happiness emerges from acceptance. Manufactured happiness emerges from resistance. Think about a time when you felt genuinely happy. Not the forced kind, the real kind. What was happening in that moment? You weren't trying to be happy. You weren't performing happiness. You were simply present. You were accepting what was happening without judgment. You were allowing yourself to be exactly where you were. That's the secret most people miss. Happiness isn't something you create through effort. It's something you uncover through acceptance. It's already there, underneath the layers of should and shouldn't, underneath the weight of expectations, underneath the pressure to be different than you are. But acceptance doesn't mean resignation. This is crucial. Accepting your heaviness doesn't mean you're stuck with it forever. It means you're no longer adding the weight of resistance to the weight you're already carrying. And that changes everything. When you stop fighting your heaviness, something remarkable happens. You stop giving it more power. You stop feeding it with your resistance. You stop making it mean something terrible about you. And in that space, in that moment of non-resistance, you create room for something new to emerge. This is where real transformation begins. Not in the forcing, not in the fighting, in the allowing. You might be thinking, but what about when life is genuinely difficult? What about when you're dealing with loss, with betrayal, with disappointment, with fear? Are you supposed to just accept those things and pretend they don't hurt? Are you supposed to be grateful for pain? No. You're supposed to be human. You're supposed to feel what you feel without the added layer of feeling bad about feeling bad. You're supposed to grieve what needs to be grieved. You're supposed to be angry about what deserves anger. You're supposed to be afraid when fear is appropriate. The heaviness you feel isn't the problem. The problem is the story you tell yourself about the heaviness. The story that says you shouldn't feel this way. The story that says strong people don't struggle. The story that says happiness is your default setting and anything else is failure. Those stories are lies. And those lies are what make your natural human heaviness unbearable. Here's a different story. Here's a story that might change how you relate to your own experience. You are a human being having a human experience. Human experiences include the full spectrum of emotion, joy and sorrow, lightness and heaviness, excitement and fear. All of it is normal. All of it is temporary. All of it is information. When you accept this, when you truly accept this, something shifts in your nervous system. The fight or flight response that gets triggered every time you feel something you think you shouldn't feel starts to calm down. Your body begins to trust that you're not going to attack it for feeling what it feels. And in that trust, in that safety, natural well-being begins to emerge. This is what people mean when they talk about inner peace. It's not the absence of difficulty. It's the presence of acceptance in the midst of difficulty. It's the ability to feel heavy without making heaviness wrong. It's the capacity to experience sadness without adding the suffering of resistance to sadness. But here's where it gets practical. How do you actually do this? How do you move from forcing happiness to allowing authentic well-being? How do you shift from fighting your heaviness to honoring it? It starts with awareness. Right now, in this moment, what are you feeling? Not what you think you should be feeling, not what you wish you were feeling. What are you actually feeling? Can you name it? Can you locate it in your body? Can you breathe with it instead of bracing against it? This is the first step. Recognition without judgment. Acknowledgement without the immediate need to change or fix or improve. This is what's here right now. Most of you have never learned how to do this. You've learned how to analyze your feelings, how to justify them or dismiss them, how to compare them to other people's feelings, how to feel guilty about them. But you haven't learned how to simply be with them. Being with your feelings is different than being overwhelmed by them. Being with them means you maintain your center while allowing them to move through you. Being overwhelmed means you lose your center and get swept away by them. The difference is awareness. When you're aware, you can observe your feelings without becoming them. You can say, I notice I'm feeling heavy today, instead of I am heavy. That subtle shift in language reflects a profound shift in consciousness. You move from being the feeling to being the observer of the feeling. And when you're the observer, you have choice. When you're the feeling, you're at its mercy. This is why meditation practices are so powerful. Not because they make you happy, but because they teach you how to observe your internal experience without automatically reacting to it. They teach you that you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness in which thoughts and emotions arise and pass away. But you don't need to meditate for years to access this awareness. You can access it right now. Take a breath, a real breath, not a forced breath. A breath that feels like coming home to yourself. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the air moving in and out of your lungs. Feel the aliveness in your body from this place of embodied awareness. Check in with yourself. What's really going on inside you right now? What are you carrying that you don't need to carry? What are you forcing that wants to flow naturally? What are you resisting that wants to be accepted? You might notice that the heaviness you've been fighting isn't as solid as you thought. It moves. It shifts. It has texture and temperature and rhythm. It's not a permanent state. It's an experience that's moving through you. And when you stop fighting it, it moves more easily. This is the paradox of happiness. The more you chase it, the more elusive it becomes. The more you allow what's actually here, the more space you create for joy to emerge naturally. Think about laughter. Real laughter, you can't force genuine laughter. It bubbles up spontaneously when something strikes you as funny. You don't have to work at it. You don't have to convince yourself to laugh. It just happens. And when it does, it feels effortless and authentic and alive. That's what natural happiness feels like. It emerges from the same place laughter emerges from a place of openness, from a place of presence, from a place of non-resistance to what's actually happening. But most of you are so busy trying to create happiness that you miss the moments when it's already here. You're so focused on where you think you should be emotionally that you can't appreciate where you actually are. This moment right now, this breath you're breathing, this awareness you're experiencing. There's something inherently peaceful about it, isn't there? Not because everything in your life is perfect, but because awareness itself is peaceful, consciousness itself is serene. Being itself is enough. When you recognize this, when you really recognize this, you stop looking for happiness in all the wrong places. You stop believing that your circumstances need to change for you to feel better. You start finding moments of lightness, even in the midst of heavy times. This doesn't mean you become passive. This doesn't mean you stop working toward goals or solving problems or improving your life. It means you stop making your happiness conditional on those things happening. It means you find your center regardless of what's happening around you. And from that centered place, you actually become more effective. You make better decisions. You have more energy. You're more creative. You're more resilient. Because you're not wasting your energy fighting reality. You're not exhausting yourself trying to feel different than you feel. You're working with life instead of against it. You're flowing with what is instead of forcing what should be. This is what it means to force yourself to be happy when life feels heavy. Not to manufacture fake positivity, not to deny your authentic experience, but to stop adding the weight of resistance to whatever weight you're already carrying. It's a radical shift, and it's available to you right now. Right now, you can stop demanding that you feel different. Right now, you can stop judging your heaviness as wrong. Right now, you can start treating yourself with the same compassion you would offer a good friend who was struggling. What would you say to a friend who came to you feeling heavy? Would you tell them to just get over it? Would you tell them they should be happy? Would you shame them for their struggle? Of course not. You would listen, you would understand, you would offer presence and support and unconditional acceptance. That's what you need to offer yourself, that quality of presence, that depth of acceptance, that willingness to be with what is instead of constantly trying to change what is. When you do this, when you really do this, something miraculous happens. The heaviness starts to shift naturally, not because you forced it to, but because you stopped holding it in place with your resistance. Energy wants to move. Emotions want to flow. Healing wants to happen. But all of that gets blocked when you're constantly fighting against your experience instead of allowing it to unfold. This is the art of conscious living, meeting each moment with presence instead of preference. Responding to life from awareness instead of reacting from conditioning. Choosing acceptance as your default mode instead of resistance. It's not always easy. Your conditioning runs deep. Your habits of resistance are strong. Your patterns of forcing and fighting have been reinforced for years, maybe decades. But every moment offers you a new choice. Every breath gives you another opportunity to practice a different way of being. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The more you choose acceptance over resistance, the more space you create for authentic well-being to emerge. The more you honor your heaviness instead of fighting it, the more room you make for genuine lightness. This is the path. Not the path to perfect happiness. There's no such thing. But the path to an authentic relationship with your own experience. The path to inner freedom. The path to a kind of contentment that doesn't depend on everything going your way. You don't have to wait for your circumstances to change. You don't have to wait for other people to understand. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment or the right feeling or the ideal situation. You can start right now with this breath, in this moment, by simply allowing yourself to be exactly where you are without needing to be anywhere else. That's the secret. That's the key. That's the doorway to the kind of happiness that can't be taken away from you because it doesn't depend on anything outside of you. It depends only on your willingness to meet life as it is instead of demanding that life be as you think it should be. It depends on your courage to feel what you feel without making what you feel wrong. It depends on your commitment to presence over performance, authenticity over approval, being over becoming. This is your invitation. Not to force happiness, but to discover the happiness that's already here, waiting underneath your resistance, ready to emerge the moment you stop fighting against what is and start embracing what's possible. The heaviness you feel isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It's showing you where you're holding tension, where you're carrying what isn't yours, where you're resisting what wants to flow. Listen to it, learn from it. Let it guide you back to yourself, back to this moment, back to the simple truth that you are enough, exactly as you are, right now. That's not a platitude, that's not positive thinking, that's reality. You are already whole. You are already complete. You are already worthy of love and happiness and peace. Not because of what you've achieved or what you've overcome or how well you've performed, but because you exist, because you're here, because you're alive. The moment you truly understand this, the moment you really get this, everything changes. Not your circumstances, not your challenges, not your history, but your relationship to all of it. And that changes everything. So stop forcing, start allowing, stop fighting, start flowing, stop performing happiness. Start experiencing it. Stop demanding that life be different. Start discovering the beauty that's already here. Your heaviness has something to teach you. Your struggle has gifts to offer. Your pain has wisdom to share. But only if you stop running from it. Only if you stop making it wrong. Only if you start treating it as sacred information instead of shameful evidence of your inadequacy. You are not inadequate. You are not broken. You are not failing at life, because life sometimes feels heavy. You are human. And being human means feeling the full spectrum of what it means to be alive. That spectrum includes heaviness, it includes struggle, it includes pain and confusion and uncertainty, but it also includes joy and wonder and love and peace. All of it belongs to you. All of it is part of your birthright as a conscious being. The question isn't how to avoid the heavy parts. The question is how to meet them with grace, how to move through them with wisdom, how to let them transform you instead of diminish you. And the answer is always the same: presence, acceptance, compassion. For yourself first, for your experience as it is, not as you wish it were, for the magnificent, messy, beautiful reality of being human in a world that's constantly changing. But here's something most people don't understand about this process. The shift from forcing to allowing isn't a one-time decision. It's a practice, a daily, moment-by-moment practice of catching yourself in the act of resistance and gently redirecting toward acceptance. You'll notice patterns. You'll see how your mind automatically goes to judgment when certain feelings arise. You'll catch yourself saying things like, I shouldn't feel this way, or this is taking too long, or I should be over this by now. These thoughts aren't the enemy either. They're just old programming running in the background. When you notice these patterns, don't fight them. Don't judge your judging. Just observe. Just notice. Oh, there's that voice again that says I'm doing life wrong. And then, with great gentleness, redirect your attention back to what's actually happening in this moment. This is the practice. This is how transformation happens. Not through grand gestures or dramatic breakthroughs, through countless small moments of choosing consciousness over conditioning. Choosing presence over the stories your mind tells about presence. And here's what you'll discover as you practice. Those heavy feelings you've been so afraid of, they're not actually that scary when you stop running from them. They're just energy. They're just information. They're just part of the rich tapestry of human experience. You'll start to notice that sadness has a different quality than depression. Sadness moves. Depression feels stuck. Sadness has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Depression feels like it's always been there and always will be. When you allow sadness to flow naturally, it rarely becomes depression. It's the resistance to sadness that creates the stuckness. The same is true for anger. When you allow yourself to feel angry without immediately trying to fix it or justify it or get rid of it, anger becomes a powerful source of information. It tells you where your boundaries have been crossed. It tells you what matters to you. It tells you where change needs to happen. But when you force yourself to not be angry, when you suppress it or deny it, it turns into resentment. And resentment is anger that's been trapped in your system too long. Fear works the same way. Natural fear is a gift. It keeps you safe. It alerts you to real danger. It helps you make wise decisions. But when you're afraid of fear itself, when you resist the sensation of fear, it becomes anxiety, and anxiety is fear that's been amplified by your resistance to feeling afraid. You see the pattern? The emotion itself isn't the problem. Your relationship to the emotion is what creates suffering. And you can change that relationship right now. You can start treating your emotions as allies instead of enemies, as messengers instead of mistakes, as teachers instead of tormentors. This shift changes everything about how you move through the world. Instead of spending your energy trying to control how you feel, you start using that energy to respond wisely to how you feel. Instead of fighting against your inner weather, you start learning how to navigate it skillfully. You become emotionally mature. Not because you've learned to feel only positive emotions, but because you've learned to feel all emotions without losing your center. You've learned to let feelings move through you without taking up permanent residence. You've learned the difference between feeling your feelings and drowning in them. This emotional maturity is what creates genuine confidence. Not the kind of confidence that depends on everything going well, the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever arises, knowing that no feeling is too much for you, knowing that you have the capacity to meet life fully, whatever it brings. And from this place of emotional resilience, something beautiful starts to happen. You stop trying to manage other people's emotions too. You stop taking responsibility for how other people feel. You stop walking on eggshells to avoid triggering someone else's heaviness. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You start showing up authentically. You start expressing yourself honestly. You start living from your truth instead of from your fears about how others might react to your truth. And paradoxically, this makes you more trustworthy, not less. Because people can sense when you're being real, and they feel safer around authenticity than around performance. Your relationships transform. Instead of connecting through shared resistance to difficult feelings, you start connecting through shared acceptance of the full human experience. Instead of bonding over complaints and problems, you start bonding over presence and understanding. Instead of seeking people who will help you avoid your feelings, you start attracting people who can sit with you in whatever you're experiencing. This is what healthy relationships look like. Two whole people who don't need each other to feel complete, but who choose to share their completeness with each other. Two people who can hold space for each other's heaviness without trying to fix it or take it on as their own. Two people who can celebrate each other's lightness without feeling threatened or left behind. But it all starts with your relationship to yourself, with your willingness to be with yourself in all your seasons, with your commitment to treating yourself with the kind of radical acceptance that creates the conditions for healing and growth and authentic joy. And here's something profound that happens when you stop forcing happiness and start allowing authentic experience. You begin to understand that your worth was never tied to your emotional state in the first place. You begin to see that you don't have to earn the right to feel good by first feeling bad enough. You don't have to prove your suffering before you're allowed relief. This is crucial because so many of you have unconscious beliefs about deserving happiness. You think you have to work hard enough, suffer long enough, be good enough before happiness is justified. You think joy is somehow selfish when there's pain in the world. You think you don't deserve lightness until you've solved all your problems. These beliefs are prison walls. And you've been living inside them so long you've forgotten they're not real. They're just thoughts, just conditioning, just inherited ideas about how life is supposed to work. But they're not natural laws. They're not universal truths. They're just stories that can be questioned and released. What if happiness doesn't have to be earned? What if joy is your birthright, not a reward for good behavior? What if you're allowed to feel good right now, exactly as you are, without having to justify it or fix everything first? This isn't about spiritual bypassing. This isn't about pretending problems don't exist. This is about recognizing that your problems don't define your worth. Your struggles don't determine your value. Your heaviness doesn't disqualify you from lightness. You can feel heavy and still know you're worthy of love. You can be struggling and still deserve compassion. You can be imperfect and still be enough. These aren't contradictions. They're the natural state of being human. But somewhere along the way, you learn to make your acceptance of yourself conditional. You learn to withhold love from yourself until you met certain criteria. You learn to treat yourself like a problem to be solved rather than a being to be cherished. This conditional self-love is exhausting. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of striving and disappointment. You achieve something, feel briefly worthy, then the bar moves higher. You solve one problem, feel momentarily adequate, then find 3 more problems to worry about. You're never quite there, never quite enough, never quite deserving of the acceptance you're seeking. But unconditional self-acceptance, that's revolutionary. That's freedom. That's the end of the war between who you are and who you think you should be. When you accept yourself unconditionally, you stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be present. You stop measuring your worth by your productivity and start recognizing your inherent value. You stop waiting for someday when everything is figured out and start living today with whatever is real. This doesn't mean you stop growing. It doesn't mean you become complacent. It means you grow from a place of wholeness rather than brokenness. You improve from love rather than fear. You change because you want to expand, not because you're inadequate as you are. And this changes the quality of every transformation in your life. When you're trying to fix yourself from a place of self-rejection, every step forward feels like evidence that you were broken before. When you're growing from a place of self-acceptance, every step forward feels like a natural unfolding of who you've always been. The difference is profound. One keeps you trapped in a story of inadequacy made temporarily better. The other reveals the truth of your inherent completeness expressing itself in new ways. This is your life. This moment, this breath, this awareness, this opportunity to choose love over fear, acceptance over resistance, presence over avoidance. Choose wisely, choose consciously. Choose with the understanding that every choice you make creates the quality of your experience, not your circumstances, your experience of your circumstances. And that's where your power lies. That's where your freedom lives. That's where authentic happiness waits to be discovered.